Good afternoon, everybody. It's Valerie Ling here, clinical psychologist. Probably today coming to you wearing a slightly different hat, that of a mum, and wanting to talk to you about something that has really been on my mind lately. So, to give you some context, I had to make a very difficult decision today, and the decision was to let go of a particular project. And the reason why I essentially let go of this particular project, because I had two groups of people on my mind: my family, as well as my team of psychologists and dietitian who work with me at the Center for Effective Living. And when you find yourself still thinking about a decision, or you find yourself still, we call it ruminating, several hours later, in my case, almost a day later, you really need to stop and think about, hey, what is it that's really bugging me? So I'm coming to you live really to share a burden that I have and to explain the decision that I made. So one of the things I noticed when I was a young lass in my 20s, working for an international consulting firm, the organization had headquarters in the UK, and at the time I was working in the Singapore office, but I had a lot of links to the UK office and would make some trips out to meet with the international team. And one of the things, and we would do cross projects, so I could have been put on a project which involved colleagues from the global team. And one of the things that I noticed even then was that my Nordic colleagues were exceptional. They were exceptional because first of all, they were very chilled. They didn't get stressed very easily. They were very technically competent and just had a way of coming up with ideas and solutions that were really just matter of fact. And they were very easy to work with. And I remember making that observation that there's something different about these guys. I don't know whether IKEA was around then. Might have been. I don't have any memory of doing any shopping in IKEA at that point in time. I only remember doing IKEA shopping much later in my life. But I do like IKEA. I love IKEA. Now, if I'm ever having one of those moments where I'm feeling like my creative tank is a little bit drained, I probably will go to IKEA. And it's not just because of the ideas that they come up with, but IKEA as a company is fascinating. I'm still waiting for the book that comes out that helps us to understand all the ins and outs of it. I've gathered a few articles and done my own reading on it. But if you know of a book that tells me the story of IKEA, please tell me. Again, they have a very interesting culture, the way that they infuse it, their ethos and philosophy. But anyway, the Nordic countries are also found to be highest in their levels of trust. So I want to suggest to you that rather than looking at the happiness index, which is still really current in psychological thinking, but really probably has had its day, we really need to be looking at trust index. Can I suggest that you really think about trust index? The ability for individuals to trust leadership, not-for-profit organizations in general, leaders and politics is really on a downhill slide. We're probably experiencing some of the lowest levels of trust. And the natives that are coming out, natives meaning the kids that are coming out in this world that would know no different. In other words, our kids who are growing up are really growing up in a world where they will know no different in terms of trust levels. So I had a conversation with one of my children that went something like this. We've just moved houses, and so I'm making sure that I'm on the electoral roll for where we are, and I'm very aware that elections are coming up. And as I've had kids, I've become more and more aware that I need to role model to them my own attitudes about politics. And the conversation went like this: Mum, when I grow up, I'm just going to do a donkey vote. And this is from a very sensible child. And I thought, tell me more. And basically my child said there's really no point in the vote. because of the number of changes our government has had and the number of promises that get broken. And this was a very matter-of-fact statement, and for my child, this was like actually just a very logical conclusion. Now, these are the natives of our world today. There are low levels of trust. And organizationally, when you actually think about how this plays out, when you think about the newer employees coming through, trust levels are really, really low. Crowdsourcing for what you think is probably high. In other words, there's more value and more opinion oftentimes given to peers and strangers. You collect the mass responses of people who've had similar experiences to you, and then you come up with a conclusion, and then that trust is passed on. For example, Airbnb, Uber, anything. You get a community rating, and trust is invested there. And this really bothers me because essentially trust is part of the relational capital that occurs in our one-to-one interactions. It really is a byproduct of someone saying that the words that come out of my mouth are the words that you can trust and you can bank on. And if we no longer can count on that sort of relational capital and trust is in decline, then essentially we'll become a very fragmented, a rather opinionated and rather unhappy society. And that's really not the future that I want for my children. And I'm very conscious now to make decisions that basically escalate trust. So my decision to say no was a byproduct of living authentically, to say that, I need to actually look at the resources that the practice has, resources that the individual practitioners have at the moment, what's on their plate. If I say that I bring a message of no burnout, then I need to make sure that when I look back at my team and the people who are in the trenches with me, that they trust. Equally, it was a commitment to my family that April would be a rundown time for us, and that they could count on me being present and available and not moving about here, there, and everywhere. And I wanted to make sure that that was given to them. And for me, reflecting on that was really, really important, and coming to you to actually say, relational capital, in particular trust, is a really important thing to think about, because when leaders burn out, when parents burn out, when we tank out, trust in the cause, trust in the vision, trust in the ability to make a difference, trust to rise to potential, trust to serve gets eroded. Because when those that follow us and those who are watching us see us tank out and not live authentic lives, then trust goes down. So to me, it's actually really important to think a lot deeper and a lot clearer about the legacy that we leave behind, the brands that we are building, the organizations that we are developing, the message that we are sharing. How are we embodying a sense of trust? Trust, for me, if you're going to do it to help the next generation, trust. Number one, we have to turn up. We've got to turn up. And when we turn up, we've got to be present. Number two, we've got to deliver. If we say that that is what we're going to do, then we actually really need to deliver. Number three, we've got to look back. When we're running so fast and so far ahead, we've got to periodically look back and see if the other people are catching up with us, whether they're doing okay. And number four, we've got to fix it. We've got to have the humility and the resources to be able to reflect and know if we've made any mistakes, if we need to repair, if we need to actually instill trust. It's very hard to do all of this when you're on empty and when you're actually depleted. So please, will you join me? I've tried different ways to bring about the message of burnout. And today I just want to bring you the message that we've got to leave a legacy behind of a higher capital of trust. And would you think about that? Would you think about how in your individual worlds, in your families, and in the work that you do, that when you leave it all behind, people have a higher trust in humanity and in the cause that you represent? I've got some people watching here. Hey, Kim. Hi, Michelle. You've just come to the end of my message. You might want to watch it. I talk about the new problem of trust. Okay, see you later.